We're absolutely flooded with information every single day, but how well can we actually understand it? Today we're going to break down the whole issue of literacy in Indonesia, which is a really crucial challenge that's going to define our future. And to get started, I've got one simple question for you.
Go ahead, take a guess. Out of dozens of countries surveyed all around the world, where do you think Indonesia ranks when it comes to literacy skills?
The answer is honestly pretty alarming. According to the PISA survey, that's a global test for 15-year-old students, Indonesia ranks 60th out of 61 countries. Yeah, you heard that right, second to last. This number is basically a massive emergency alarm for all of us. So, over the next few minutes, we're going to unpack this whole problem. We'll start with the harsh reality behind that ranking. Then, we'll straighten out what literacy actually means. Once we get why it's so important, we'll jump into practical solutions. Everything from building the habit yourself to creating a foundation from a young age, and finally, how we can all play a part in building a brighter generation.
All right, let's dive into part one, the harsh reality of literacy in Indonesia. That PISA rank isn't just a number. It's a reflection of a huge challenge we're facing as a nation.
And here's the real irony. We're living in the information age, right? Knowledge is literally at our fingertips. But, as Hamza Fareev has pointed out, our ability to process that information, which is what literacy is our biggest weak spot. It's a strange paradox, isn't it? And it's one we absolutely have to solve.
Okay, now let's move on to what might be the most important point of our whole discussion. When you hear the word literacy, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most people, it's just the ability to read and write. Well, it's time to clear up that common misconception.
So, on this slide, you can see the comparison side by side. On the left, we have the common mistake, thinking literacy is just about basic reading, writing, and counting. But on the right, we see the real, much broader definition. Literacy is the ability to process information to gain life skills. It's about how we function and contribute to society. See? It goes so much deeper.
Let's look at the official definition. According to the Ministry of Education, literacy is the ability to understand, use, evaluate, and even reflect on all kinds of information. And the goal? To solve problems and develop our own potential as individuals and as citizens. So it's not just about being able to spell out words. It's about understanding their meaning, their context, and how to use them effectively in life.
Now that we have this bigger definition, the next logical question is, so what? Why is this so important? Why is literacy such a fundamental life skill for our future?
So what's the impact? Well, think of literacy as the operating system for 21st century critical thinking. It helps us tell facts from fake news, solve complex problems, and constantly build our knowledge. Basically, literacy is our ticket to fully participate in modern society and build a stronger character.
Okay, so we know the problem and we know why literacy is so vital. Now, what about the solutions? Let's start with the most fundamental thing. Cultivating a reading habit. And this applies to all of us. Remember the story of Noval from that community video? He chose books over soccer, and just by sticking with it, he ended up inspiring his friends to start reading too.
And it turns out, getting started isn't as complicated as you might think. Here are 4 practical tips you can try right away. First, read what you love. Don't force it. Second, set a regular schedule. Consistency is everything. Third, find a comfy spot so you can actually relax. And fourth, join or start a reading group. Discussing a book can make the experience so much richer.
Now let's take a step back to the most critical starting point of all, building a literacy foundation from an early age. This is where the role of parents becomes absolutely central, especially for kids between the ages of 0 and 8.
And one thing we have to underline, just as Soadiato emphasized, is that building this foundation is not about force. It's not about forcing a child to memorize the alphabet or to read before they're developmentally ready.
But instead, it's all about meaningful interaction. So how do you do that? It's as simple as chatting about their day. Or, one of the most powerful things you can do, read a story out loud for just 15 minutes a day. Let them play and socialize. And, most importantly, be a role model. A child who sees their parents reading is way more likely to read themselves.
And this is a sentence every parent and educator in Indonesia really needs to hear. According to Suwati Irogresen, the ability to read, write, and count is not a graduation requirement for preschool, and it is not the standard for entering elementary school. This statement is so important because it frees our kids from unnecessary pressure and shifts the focus back to a more complete, holistic development.
All right, we've reached our final section. Now that we've seen all the pieces of the puzzle, let's look at the big picture.
how our small steps can create a massive impact for the future.
It's so important to remember that all these early literacy efforts are a long-term investment. Literacy is the key that unlocks a child's cognitive development, especially between ages 0 and 8, the period we all know as the golden age, when their brains are developing at an incredible speed.
But literacy and cognitive skills don't exist in a vacuum. As this chart illustrates, they are just one of several equally important pillars. You also have social and emotional skills, as well as moral and religious values. All of these have to be developed in balance to create a whole person who's ready to take on the future.
So, after seeing all of this, the question really comes back to each of us. This isn't just about a national ranking anymore, it's about personal action. Whether it's starting to read for 15 minutes a day, reading a story to a child, or just sharing a good book with a friend. So what's the one small step you're going to take, starting today, to help build a culture of literacy around you?